What's going on, everyone? It's Corey here from the Breakevens, giving you another podcast today. We're here. What a crazy week. What a crazy weekend of football. We had two ACLs. Um, we had role changes. We had Primo's getting injured. We had Port Adelaide playing Rosie with one hamstring and him tearing the same hamstring. Hectic. Crazy everywhere. There's a lot to get through today. Um, I hope you all had a good weekend. You had a good Super Coach weekend. I know a lot of people struggled a little bit. Some dodged all the bullets, some took all the bullets. So um, I hope this week is a better one. So before we get into the podcast, I'm going to go through the social. So you can find us on Twitter at BreakevensPod. Make sure if you have a question, send us a message, or you see one of our posts, write a comment there. Whatever it is, always happy to answer and go back and forth and try and help you out as much as possible. We are on Facebook. The Breakevens have a Facebook page where I post everything that is said in this podcast goes up on our timeline on Facebook. So that's all the trade ins, all the trade outs, the bubble boys, the captains, everything goes on there. So if you don't want to listen to the whole podcast 2 to 3 times, um, because you've forgot potentially what I've said about a certain situation or a certain player, hit us up on Facebook. It's all there each week. Usually, everything's posted by Thursday 6 o'clock. Um, I try and spread out a little bit. So give us a like over on Facebook. We're on Instagram at the Breakevens, trying to get that going. Had a few things on, so I haven't posted on there for a week and a half, but I am going to hopefully this week, if not next week. And of course, over here on YouTube at the Breakeven. So make sure you like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is on whatever platform. Make sure you give us the recognition for doing all this hard work and really trying to help you all out. It does help us out immensely. And when things go stale or south, it really makes us want to keep on going, keep producing the content for everyone. So that's that. As always, I'm going to start off with my team review. See how my team went. Spoiler, another green arrow, which is what I love to see. So I'll quickly go over to my team. So this is how my team went. I scored 2,169, which in hindsight isn't too bad at all. A lot of people went higher, a lot of people went a lot less. So again, just in that middle ground. But as you can see, I jumped up 435 ranks. So I'm now in the top 5K. I was just out last week and now I am in and I'm trying to get my way to the top 1,000. Not much more I can say there. I won all my draft leagues, though, which is a first, but my drafts haven't been doing great this year. But I've already done my trades for this week, so I'll quickly undo those so you can see how my team lined up last week, and then we'll go through the trades for this week. So give me just a split second. So this is how I lined up this week. As you can probably see in that forward line, I took a donut. So I scored 2,169 and I was a player down, which is unfortunate for me. But I'll go through my thoughts behind that in just a second. But let's go through my side from top to bottom and starting off with the big 197 from Lukey Ryan, 39 touches and 15 marks. Absolutely insane. Doesn't get much bigger than that. You've got Nikki Dacos with 150 as well. Absolutely tore it up. Harry Sheasel now played a bit more midfield time. Score of 73. Not looking great. Hopefully he gets his halfback role, but then hopefully not. And I'll get into that with my trades. Nicky Martin 122. Love that. Closey was disappointing with a 43. Obviously, he went like 90 and 100 in his first two games, so he has the potential to score. But realistically, we're just looking for 60 to 70s from him, and unfortunately, a 43 doesn't quite cut that. And Will Graham 59, I'll take that from him, but again, probably want just a little bit more. In the midfield, got Zachy Mirror at 121, did exactly what I thought he would do. I had Bond captain 142, smashed it there. Obviously, if you look at the team, there's only two blokes who scored higher. So I definitely take that as a win. Butters 124, Walsh 91, so disappointing. He hasn't turned up since I got him, or actually, did he turn up last week? He's gone like 80, 104, and then like 91. So need him to fire. Jordan Dawson, who I brought in this week, 94 as well. Need him to fire, to do something, please. Took Miller 93 as well. The 390s in a row absolutely killed me. But I think he'll bounce back this week. And Tom Green. For those who didn't have Tom Green, absolutely smiling at quarter time in that GWS game. Subbed out on 5. We weren't expecting the huge score from Green because it was a tough matchup, but yeah, 5 on field, absolutely killer. Matty Roberts 50 as well was so disappointing. He's probably one bad score. He did have a 69, I think, in his first game for the season, but then after that, it's all been 70 or above. 50 there, disappointing. He still went up a little bit of cash though. And as you can see on the bench, I had Wilson 126, who went absolutely massive, looking like a good rookie at the moment. Hugo Garcia 56 is solid, and I jumped on Jakey Rogers, who scored 21 and didn't make as much money as I hoped. At the VC on Gorn 111, I was hoping for a little bit more. I think he was off the field for a while with a concussion test potentially, or there was some sort of injury. He came back on and finished strong. English 135. Again, exactly what I thought he would get. And Sweet 74, I expected that. Heaney 109. A little bit unders, but again, it's a ton and it's in our forward line. It's fine. Flanders 128, love that. Harley Reid struggled to get into the game with a 59. Tom Powell got some CBAs back, only for 72, disappointing. Sam Darcy 49, but it was a tough matchup for him, and obviously didn't have anyone on as F6 because I had Sexton, who was an emergency, thought he would have come back. Neon got dropped, and Livingston there is my loophole. So the reason I took a donut because I actually couldn't fit Riley Garcia in, so that's why I went Rogers. Unfortunately, the way it's gone, I haven't. My forward line has crapped it. I wasn't able to get Wilson on because going into the round, I was looking at Darcy, I was looking at Powell, and I was looking at Reid, who I could have swapped into my midfield, but then I'm still stuck with a Sexton or Neon, and they didn't play, so didn't really matter what I did. I was always going to have a donut. Couldn't get Garcia, so unfortunately, that's what happens. But it did set up my trades for this week. So, speaking of those, I will take you through those trades and bit surprising, I think, for some. So give me a second. All right, so I'm out of boost, so I can't use the boost. All right. Matt Roberts and Biggie Neon are out. I was hoping to keep Roberts as a M9, possibly D7, but the way things have gone, I've had to trade him out for the better of my team and to help my trade cadence, and make sure that that keeps rolling all the way up to the buys. So sad to part ways with Roberts. He's been an absolute gun. And I do think he will bounce back and he'll have good scores. But for my side, he has to go. And sometimes you have to make the big decisions, and sometimes they'll work out, sometimes they won't. But we'd like to thank Matt Roberts for his service. He's been an absolute star. And Big in Neon had to go anyway. I'm keeping Sexton. Funny. Keeping him because I think he's going to get a game soon. So, all right. Who are we going to bring in? We'll start with the defense. Actually, no, we'll start with the forward because that's the easy one. All right, there's only one man that everyone should be bringing in this week as a rookie, in my opinion. That is Darcy Jones. Averaging 73 or 72.5 or something. He's gone 70 in both games anyway. Is a must bring in. I'm pretty sure he holds his spot. He's playing well. He's looking dynamic. And out of all the rookies for this week, he's the best one by far. Now we go into defense. So 531,500 left over. Sorry, I didn't clear the filters. That's my bad. And then we will filter by players I can afford just to make it easier. And then we'll sort by high price. All right. Jordan Ridley, no. Floshin, scoring, averaging well, but no. Tom Stewart is definitely one person people should look to get in. But I'm going to wait on Stewart, mainly because he has that round 14 buy. And as I said last week, I'm struggling a little bit on that buy. So I'm going to wait until that buy is finished, and then I'm going to look to pick him up. Might be a little bit more expensive, but that's okay. Lockie Whitfield was big on him. I'm going to give him a rest just for the time being. You got Nick Newman, someone else who I was big on, especially if Williams is out. But saying that, Williams is a test this week. McGovern, Clark, good options. Pot options as well, 5.1 and 3.5%. Max Holmes, I don't think is an option. Nasiah, a bit up and down. I want someone a bit more, screwed on there. Bose is playing well. Will Powell's playing well. Ed Richards is there for some more mid-time, I think, with Libba out. There's not much. Scrolling through, there's not much there. There's our boy Matty Roberts. So who'd we go? I'm not going anyone who I just spoke about. I'm actually going all the way down here. We're going to keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. What? 300K? Yes, it is. Colby McKercher. I traded him out 2 to 3 weeks ago. His role had changed. He was the sub for one, or no, he got sub for one of the games. He was going to lose cash. decided to trade him, which was the right decision at the time because I'm pretty sure it got me someone half decent. I think it might have got me a Merritt or a Miller at the time. But with Sheasel going into the midfield a little bit more, McKercher is the guy down back, and he's gone back to back hundreds. He's gone, I think it was 105 or 102 2 weeks ago, and then just went 138 and looks like a great option. So I'm going to lock him in, which leaves me with $221,700 left over, which if I look at my side, it's most likely next week a Sam Darcy to a primo in my forward line. Looking because probably Closey would probably have to go next week, depending on what he scores this week. So he'll have to go down to a rookie. And I'm happy to have Wilson on the field for now. If not, I've got swaps here. And then that means the only one really I'd like to get rid of is Sam Darcy, who I think will have a good week this week. It's a good matchup for him, but he'll probably go next week to a primo. And then hopefully what happens is I keep having around 150 to 200K each week just to keep upgrading my side. So that's those are my thoughts. Obviously, if people get dropped, like if Graham gets dropped and Hall and Reed don't come in, things are going to have to change there. But hopefully everything goes well. So those are my trade thoughts. I'll confirm this and then I'll show you how the team will line up for this week. All right, this is how I'm looking to head into this week. Backline, pretty straightforward there. Same with the midfield. The only, I guess, option I have to make is, do I prefer Darcy Wilson against the Hawks or do I prefer Closey against the Roos? That's going to be a tough one. Tough. Just trying to think what I could do to combat that, and not much really. So a bit of rookie roulette there, and I'm going Bont into Dacos. I like the Dogs versus the Tigers. That's a great matchup, and the Pies against West Coast is also a favorable matchup. So that is my side for this week. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's okay? Does Tom Green play? Fingers crossed that the teams are announced and all my players are playing. So, with my team review done, we'll get straight into all the good stuff. So I'll see you in a second. Alrighty, so let's get into our trade out targets. The first one is Tom Liberatore, 615K, averaging 106. It's been a roller coaster ride for Liber owners this season. Definitely not the output that we were expecting. Unfortunately, copping a second concussion within the last month. We'll see him out indefinitely with no idea when he will return. Dogs have come out and said that they're going to take it pretty easy because there's 2 in 3 to 4 weeks. So that's not great. And he has been knocked out a few times before, which means now is the right time to move on Liber, especially 615K. You can either go up to someone who you don't have, or you can go down to someone a little bit cheaper, who I'll get into in the trade in soon. Next is Harry Sheasel, 612K, averaging 118. The Cheasel has started the season like a house on fire, playing off the halfback, But the last couple of weeks, we've seen him be pushed into that midfield, which has seen his scoring drop massively. This is just due to his disposal efficiency, in my opinion, dropping from 80 to 63% within last week. So 2 weeks ago, he was going at about 80%, last week, 63. And what that is, when you're in the midfield, you have less time to, I guess, look and try and pinpoint your passes. Sometimes it's so contested. You get the ball, you just want to put it on the boot, get it going forward, and hope it works out. Hope you kick to a contest 40 meters away, so then it still counts as an effective kick. But as we know, watching football and playing football, that doesn't happen all the time. So what he's been doing quick kicks forward, and it's either been intercepted or it's going nowhere, and his team doesn't get the ball anyway. So when you're behind the ball, there's a little bit less pressure most of the time. So you have that extra 1 to 2 seconds, which is all you need, is that extra second to be able to, okay, there's my guy, bang, hit that target. So he's not a must trade by any means. But if he keeps this roll up, we could see him drop a lot of money and drop scores like last week, like a 73. So just keep an eye on his role if that keeps happening. If there's an injury, things could change, especially if there's an injury on the halfback. He's the first one to go there. So just keep an eye on Harry Sheasel. Next is Elliot Yeo, 602K, averaging 113. And I've said this a few times, but it was only time that Yeo went down with an injury. It was only a matter of time. It seems to be a minor groin strain, and the early news is that it'll be a 1 to 2 week injury. So not too bad for owners, which means he's not a must trade out at all. But we have seen before where he gets one little niggle and then that snowballs, a few more come, and then you're stuck with Elliot Yeo, who's out for a month. So keep an eye on him. I think most people will probably have him in their defense. So if you have cover for 1 to 2 weeks, I'd prefer hold. But if you don't, you might have to look to trade him to someone, and there are some good cheaper options. But that's for you to decide. Not an essential trade at all if it's what they say, 1 to 2 weeks. Next is Nat 518K, averaging 81. We knew Fife was going to be managed this season. Longmuir came out and said that a couple of times during preseason. It was just unfortunate last week for owners. He started as the sub, where we know early in the season he started the game and then got subbed off for 3/4 time. They just flipped it this week, which hurt, and it's absolutely destroyed his cash generation, giving him a break even of 102 this week, which he can get. But he's over 400K. It makes him a great trade option for those who have some money in the bank. Not an essential trade again, but one that makes sense for certain teams and and people's different strategies. So he started at 200 and something K, I think, or was it? Yeah, 280K. So he's made 120, 140K there. So definitely take that. Not an essential, but someone you could look at. Matt Roberts, 416K, averaging 83. Spoke of him a little bit on my team review, but he's been the most consistent rookie we've had this season. Call him Mr. Reliable. He put up his worst score for the season on the weekend. Similar to Fife, his break even is over 100, sitting at 107, which we know he can hit if he has a massive game. But unfortunately, it looks like it's time to depart with the great man, and his price makes it easier to reach one of those fallen primos. So thank you, Matty Roberts. Tom Powell, 395K, average of 85. We saw an increase in his CBAs last week, which is what I just said before. He jumped from 2 weeks ago, which was 14% to 52% last week, but didn't result in a massive increase in score. I did some research, and it seems Powell needs upwards of 70% CBAs to score well. And last week he went at 47% disposal efficiency, which did not help his cause at all. So what I said with Harry Sheasel, contested, kicked the ball, not much time to think. You're a little bit rushed. Your disposal efficiency isn't going to be great. So that's what has happened there. I think he is a trade out this week, as I don't see CBAs rising much more than it did last week. It'll take a massive change. So I think he is a trade. I'm holding on to him because you have to hope, you have to dream. And there's other players around who need to go. So I'm looking at him. If he can go 80 for me, I'll take that as a win until I can trade him. Obviously, if he starts hitting the hundreds again, definitely going to take those points, especially in that forward line. But could be a great trade this week. Zachy Williams, 325k, averaging 67. For those who didn't jump off Williams last week, would have been pretty happy with the start he had. But then he goes and gets injured again. It was a glute injury. Injury news has come out. It said he's a test, but I think he's had back-to-back niggles. So I reckon Carlton might rest him. That's what I would do. But they've got health professionals who know what they're doing. Unless they're at Port Adelaide, really. So with a couple of niggles over the last few weeks, it's getting hard to trust his body. And at this point of time, we have, at the point of writing that, I had no information on the injury itself, but we know it's a glute and he's a test. What is working in his favor is that he does have a low break even of 47. And if he plays, he could jump up around 350k. But me personally, I can't trust his body holding up, and I think he is a trade. Next up is Charlie Comben. So 297k with averages 74. Comben has disappointed those that jumped on him, especially after his 129, and since only made 70k of profit. Depending on how your team was impacted last week, it could be an easy downgrade to a rookie like a Darcy Jones. But if you have problems elsewhere, if you had a Yo, a Williams, Tom Green also went down. Maybe one of your rookies got subbed or got dropped like a biggie. If you have problems elsewhere, you could probably hold him for one more week, but next week probably has to go, definitely. And those who have Cadman, Closey, Camus, and Ewan, they can all be trade out options, in my opinion. Cadman and Closey aren't necessary this week. I think they can still score well with lowish break evens. So you could probably keep those, but Camus and Neon need to go. All right, so let's move on to the Bubble Boys. So these are rookies that have now played 2 games and could be trading options. So starting off first, Harvey Harrison, 180k forward, averaging 65.5 with a break even of -29. Harrison has proven he has what it takes to play at the AFL level, coming on as the sub in his first game, scoring a 48. But last week, playing a full game and going 83. With a few injuries at the Pies, he should keep his spot and has had great output so far. The only knock is his price, and do you want to pay up for someone who, after one bad game, could see himself out of the side? So it's that risk for reward. We know Mitchell and DeGoey are out this week. We know McCreary is out this week. There's news that Elliott might just be rested, but we'll see what happens there. So Harrison is a good option for our forward lines. But then there's Darcy Darcy Jones, 123k forward, averages 72 with a break even of negative 75. The helmet has looked great in his first two games, scoring a 75 and a 70. Looks to be the must-get rookie this week, as he should hold his spot on the side and seems to be a consistent scorer. I don't think he is a starting sub risk. He could potentially get subbed, but the way he's playing, that should not happen. And at 123k, you will take that. All other rookies on the bubble, in my opinion, aren't great Supercoach options just due to a lack of job security or scoring potential. Nice, short and sharp there. Now we move towards the trade-in targets. This is a fun one. So first up, I've had this guy in the last few weeks. Christian Petrarca, 551k mid, averaging 107. As I said, I've had Petrarca as a trade-in target for the last few weeks just because he is so cheap. And we know when he gets going, he can go at 115 plus. Nothing changes. He's still a great option. Just be wary of that round 14 buy. Next is Tom Green, 541k mid, average of 106. Copped an ankle knock on the weekend, which has been cleared of any damage and is a test to play this week at a very low price, and with a few of our better rookies looking like it's time to move on. Green becomes a great trade-in target this week. He is a test. I feel like it's a big game. Will they play him? I reckon flip a coin. I'm probably leaning towards they'll rest him because he's such an important part of their side. So rest him for 1 week, get that ankle right. He'll be back next week. But if he is named, he must be looked at as a trade-in target, definitely. Next is Bailey Dale, 532k defender, averaging 95.6. Another player that has been on this list a few times with another 100 plus score. He looks back to his best. I did say last week I was worried about Richards going into defense with Libba back in the side. This didn't seem to affect him. His scoring, didn't seem to affect his scoring at all this week. And with knowledge that Libba could be out for more than a few weeks with concussion, this bodes well for Dale as an option, as Richards will probably go back in that midfield. Next up is Tom Stewart, 523k defender, average of 98. He just came back from concussion and went 104 as a high break even of 132. So he could definitely lose some more cash. I still think he is a great option at this time. As we know what Stewart can produce. Again, he's got that round 14 buy. But 523k, it's very hard to say no. Next up is Dylan Moore, 521k forward, average of 94. I spoke about Moore last week and how he can go on hot streaks and how well he can score, and he did this again on the weekend, scoring 140. He has an easy fixture this week with the Saints, but then after that it gets much harder. But now would be the last time to get him before he jumps up to around 600k. If he goes 140 again this week, he'll be around 600k. So if you like the pick, jump on more now. Next up is Clayton Oliver at 476k as a midfielder with an average of 89. The Pink Pig looked back on the weekend, smashing out a massive 141. Is this the start of something special? Can he go 120 for the rest of the season? I think he can, and that means he's crazily undervalued. I personally would like to see how he goes this week, but definitely can see why people will be jumping on him this week, and seems to be a very popular trade in. But I'm going to wait that extra week. Next up is Jaden Short, 385k defender, averaging 76. It kills me to say his name, let alone think of him as an option, as he burned me multiple times the last few years, and he did at the start of this one. He did return from injury on the weekend and scored 115 and looked to have that halfback role that he was promised but never seems to retain. He had 7 kick-ins, which Vloshton was next best with 4, which does bode well for Short and his scoring. But can he keep that up, and will he keep his role? Who knows? But if he does, he is value and could be a good pickup. And the last one is Colby McCurcher, 309k defender mid, averages 73. He's back. The Sheasel of 2024 is back, playing purely in defense the last 2 weeks, taking 17 kick-ins in the last 2 weeks, with Sheasel playing in the midfield the last 2 weeks. McCurcher has gone 102 and 135. A lot of us traded him out a few weeks ago and can bring him in for just around 20k more expensive, with a break even of negative 61. I feel this is a no-brainer. He can go 95 to 105 for the rest of the season and possibly be a keeper. I think he's a great option to bring in this week as he is so cheap and he's going to make a lot of cash. And he can help set up your trades next week like he has done for mine. I've got 220k left in the kitty for next week because I've brought in McCurcher rather than going up to Tom Stewart. I'd just like to point out that Josh Dunkley, Dan Houston, Jack Sinclair, Darcy Parish, and Hayden Young are all great options to bring in this week as well. Obviously a bit pricier, but good options nonetheless. Also, a lot of people will ask about Jack Hayes. We know the guy can score. I'd wait 1 more week to see how he goes, but it could be a great option next week. He went over 100, playing 40% in the ruck, with Marshall and that little niggle. I think they rotated a bit more. So keep an eye on Jack Hayes. As we move now towards our captains. So our captain options for this week, starting on the Thursday, these are vice captain options, obviously. You've got the Blues who are playing the Ds. Max Gawn has gone 84, 103, 129 in his last 3. It's hard to go against Gawn this season, but he does face a tough matchup as the Blues are the 5th hardest team for rucks to score. But saying this, it is Max Gawn, and he could go big if he gets on top, works around the ground. He can score well. It doesn't matter who it is. It's Max Gawn, so he is an option. Another one is Clayton Oliver, 128, 126, and 140 in his last 3. Has the recent history against the Blues and could be back to his best. We know what he can produce and could be a good pick, a pod pick to jump up some ranks. Petrarca and Sammy Walsh are also options, but recent history, it is a bit up and down, but on their day, they can go huge. And the smoky pick is Nick Newman. Was big on him a few weeks ago and showed last week he can score well. I think he went 148. So wouldn't be surprised if he continued on his form this week. As we move towards Friday, again, vice captain options most likely. You got Cats versus Port. First up is Zachy Butters, 137, 99, 118 in his last 3 against the Cats. Surprisingly, the 200 plus games in those last 3 have been at GMHBA Stadium, which is where they're playing this week. So the 99 was at Adelaide Oval, which was very interesting. Rosie definitely out this week means Butters could have a field day. Speaking of field day, Tommy Stewart, 134, 91, and 122 in his last 3 versus Port. Loves playing at GMHBA and could see plenty of intercept marks this week. I have a feeling Stewart is going to explode this week and would be a great pod pick. I don't think a lot of people will look towards him for a captain. And my smoky pick, back-to-back weeks, Jason Horn-Francis, yes, again, but on the same basis as last week. Rosie is out this week. He should have been out last week. And he should see an increase in mid-time. And we know what he can do with that increased mid-time. We saw that at the start of the season. He can score when he's in there. So look out for the Hornet. The second game on a Friday is Dockers versus the Swans. And it's hard to look past Lukey Ryan, 111, 85, and 128 in his last three. Just coming off a massive casual 197 on the weekend. Ryan will look to continue his form. The Swans are a tougher matchup, though, and I don't think he gets the ball as easily as he did last week, but it's still a great vice captain pick nonetheless. Sarong and Heaney are other great options for this game, but both sides are a tough matchup for midfielders this week. Both have and can continue to score highly, just not as it's not as obvious as a pick that we've seen in previous weeks, but on their day again can score highly. The smoky pick is those with Jordan Clark. Has been scoring well and consistently this season. I think he could produce another solid score this week. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes 120. As we move towards Saturday, so these are vice captain or captain options. Starting off with the Hawks versus the Saints. You got Jackie Steele, 108, 62, and 125 in his last three versus the Hawks. Recent history doesn't bode well for Steele, but the Hawks are the fourth easiest team to score points as a midfielder this season. Playing in Tassie is interesting, and with that knee heavily strapped, will it be strapped this week? We're not sure, but we know he can score well, and it's an easy midfield to score, so could go massive. James Sicily, 102, 172, and 113 in his last three against the Saints. Just looking at 172 and looking at the Saints being the third easiest team for defenders to score this season, seems like a no-brainer. But he did hurt his shoulder last week and did move into the forward line. So wait and see what the injury news says. And if there are any hints, if he'll go back into defense or if he'll stay forward. So keep an eye on that. But if he's playing in defense, could go massive like that 172. Jack Sinclair, Rowan Marshall, Nasiah, Wanganeen, Miller are all great options as well. But I'd probably prefer Jack Steele and Sicily over them. And the smoky pick is Dylan Moore. Saints are a favourable matchup for forwards this year, and Moore is in ripping form. Could see him go 140 once again, so just keep an eye on Moore. Next, it's the Bombers versus the Giants. Now, looking through all the players in this game, it's almost impossible to give a definitive option. I think all of Zach Merritt, Nick Martin, Tom Green, Darcy Parish, and Lockie Whitfield are options this week. Merritt probably being my first choice just off of form. But I wasn't going to do a write-up on all five just because, there's some good games in there. There's some bad games. The matchups, Giants are tough to score against, and so are the Bombers in the midfield. So any of those will do. I'd probably have them as a vice captain, though. I wouldn't try and captain just because there's some uncertainty there. And there's no smoky pick for this game, as I think they're all smoky picks this week. Next, Tigers versus the Dogs, and Marcus Bontempelli, probably a pretty obvious one. 153, 122, and 136 in his last three against the Tigers. Tigers are the easiest team to score points against as a midfielder, and that history is too good to pass up. So Bont, in my opinion, Bont needs to be a vice captain or a captain this week. Next up is Timmy English, 112, 145, and 96 in his last three He provides another great option this week. Tigers are the third easiest matchup for rucks this season, which is surprising because they've had Nank play. But I still think it is a tough one for English, as Nank will overpower him. But English runs and moves around the field, which is what he uses to his advantage. So it's an easy matchup, but it's also a tough one. So I prefer Bond. Let's be honest. And next is Bailey Dale, 113, 136, and 115 in his last three. Surprise, surprise, another Dogs man. Easiest matchup for defenders this season are the Tigers. And Dale could put up Luke Ryan type numbers this week, I think. So if you go in pure risk, Bailey Dale is there. The smoky pick is Jaden Short. He looked comfortable in his role last week. And if the Dogs are inaccurate in front of goals, which is what we know that they can, Short could see another solid score. The Suns versus the Roos. Anyone who has Matt Rao, Took Miller, or Sam Flanders should highly be considering putting a VC on C on one of them this week. Both Rao and Took have 110 or 116 career average against the Roos. So Rao 110 and Took 116. Playing up in, is it Northern Territory? I think that's where they're playing. Should be an easy win for the Suns anyway, and they should towel up. Smoky pick is my boy Colby McKercher. We've seen him score in defense and could see plenty of the ball once again. As we move towards Sunday, which are the captain options, and you got the Pies versus the Eagles, and Nick Dacos, 123 and 125 in his only two games against the Eagles. It doesn't get much easier on paper, does it? Dacos against the Eagles, defense or midfield, it's going to be an easy matchup. There's going to be points scored, and he is a great option this week. My smoky picks, because I don't think there are any other captain options in this game, are Harley Reid and Jeremy McGovern. Both have a great opportunity this week to score big. The Pies midfield has shown that they can get scored on, and with Yo out, Reid should see more mid-time and more of the pill. And McGovern typically intercepts everything, and the Pies haven't looked great going into the forward 50. So both of those guys could go bonkers. As we move into the last game, the Crows versus the Lions. Josh Dunkley, 62, 146, and 142 in the last three. The 62 is a little bit worrying, but that was at the Gabba. The others have been at Adelaide Oval. The Crows are the 12th hardest matchup for midfielders this year, so points can be scored there. Dunkley had a massive game last week and can see him doing the same this week. I have put here that Neil, so Lockie Neal, Jordan Dawson, Rory Laird are also great options this week. All can score well and have recent history, and it's just too hard to separate them. Laird would probably be my choice out of the three, just due to scores of 121, 115, 142 in his last three versus the Lions. And my smoky pick is Dane Zorko, my man. I was on him 4 to 5 weeks ago. I said, get on him. He had 2 bad weeks, but went 160 last week. He's back in defense, and it looked like with the injuries last week, it looked like Darcy Wilmot was one who pushed up the field, and Zorko stayed home. So that bodes well for him. And yeah, last week he monstered with a 160, so could score very well again. All right, let's move into my top 5 VCs and Cs. So starting top 5 VCs for this week are coming in at number 5, Took Miller. As I said, against the Roos, it's an easy matchup. Could go absolutely massive. At number 4 is Matty Rao. I'm going to say the exact same thing. Probably has the highest ceiling because of all the contested stuff. So He comes in at number 4. At number 3 is Tommy Stewart. I just think he's a great option. You know, those intercepts, they're gonna come in. Can he keep those up? I think he can. He's playing Port. He's got 134, 91, and 122 in his last 3. I think he is just a safe option. Number 2 is Zach Butters. No Rosie, and a good history against the Cats at GMHBA as well. I think he is a great shout there. And at number 1, no surprise, Marcus Bontempelli playing the Tigers. There's points. Just put the VC on him. Just do it. Simple as that. And now we'll move on to the top 5 captain options. Coming in number 5, I'll put Josh Dunkley. Just because in that game, I think he is most likely to go massive. At number 4, I've got Took, which means at number 3, I've got Matt Rowell, just because it's against North at the Northern Territory. Points. Number 2 is the Bond. I've put him in at number 2 just because he plays Saturday night. So if you guys wanted to put a VC on the earlier games, it makes sense to put him high up on the captain list. And number 1 is Nick Dacos against the Eagles. It doesn't matter where he plays, he's scoring points this week. So that is that. Before I finish off the podcast, I would just like to emphasize that these top 5s aren't in correlation with game times and the orders that they play in. They are strictly, in my opinion, who the best VC options are and the C options are, and are a reference for coaches who want multiple options for their team. So what I'm talking about is last week I had Bont and Merritt both on my VC and captain lists. And I had a few people say, well, the Essendon game starts 40 minutes after. Why have you put them in both sections when you can't go a Bont into a Merritt? And basically, I don't look at that. What I look at is, okay, they're playing on this day. So that means if it's a Thursday or Friday, they're usually just vice captain options. Sunday, they're always captain options. The Saturday is a vice captain or a captain option, just depending on when the games play, right? So I looked last week and I'm playing on the Saturday, so I've gone Saturday, it's either vice captain or a captain. When I make the top 5 list, I go those are options I have as VC options. They're both great options, and as captain options, they're also great captain options. So I just wanted to clear that up, that these aren't saying you should go Bond into a Dacos, because sometimes that's not going to work out. So I just wanted to make that clear. But with that being said, that is the end of the podcast. A lot of information there to get through. I just like to point out there we did look at a few DPP potential players that have just been released. So I'll quickly go through those. So Jason Horne-Francis has played 29% forward so far, so he needs to get that up 6% by the end of round 11. Jack Hayes, 40% ruck time. Looks good to get that at the moment. Sam Naismith, 34% as a forward. So he's very close to being a ruck forward for those who have him. And Petrarca is only on 16%, which is a bit of a yikes. So that's going to do it for tonight's podcast. Don't forget, you can hit us up on Twitter/X at Breakevens Pod, on Facebook, the Breakevens. Like our Facebook page. As I said, everything I've said in this podcast is going up there so you can visualize it. over on Instagram at the Breakevens. Going to be posting more there, and of course here on YouTube at the Breakeven. So make sure you like, follow, subscribe, do all of that. Really helps me out. So good luck to everyone for this week, and until next time, it's bye for now.